Good afternoon, I'm Dilek Tuna and you're watching AnewZ. These are the headlines. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu renewed his vow to return hostages back home. German Chancellor Merz confirms that Western countries no longer impose range limits on arms delivered to Kyiv. Dozens injured after a car ploughs through a crowd in Liverpool. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has renewed his vow to bring home hostages held in Gaza. His remarks came on Jerusalem Day amid conflicting reports over a potential ceasefire.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed a key national pledge to return all hostages held in Gaza by Hamas. He made the announcement during a state ceremony on Monday at Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem, marking 58 years since the 1967 war.
We will defeat those who seek our lives. We will bring back all our hostages. We will ensure that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. This mission, including the mission of returning our hostages, accompanies us day by day. It occupies us night by night, including tonight. We are not letting go of it. If we don't achieve it today, we will achieve it tomorrow. And if not tomorrow, then the day after tomorrow. We are not letting go of it.
Netanyahu's remarks come after a Palestinian source said that mediators proposed a 70-day ceasefire and the release of 10 Israeli hostages alongside some Palestinian prisoners. However, US envoy Steve Witkoff later said Hamas had not agreed to the deal. Earlier, Hamas said it's willing to release all remaining hostages and agrees to a permanent ceasefire if Israel fully withdrew from Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu has rejected that condition, insisting that any ceasefire must be temporary and linked only to the release of hostages. Tensions in Gaza remain high as Israel reports targeting a Hamas and Islamic Jihad command center, while it says it's attempting to minimize harm to civilians. Meanwhile, aid organizations warn that the humanitarian situation is deteriorating, with critical shortages of food and medicine caused by the ongoing blockade.
Gaza's food production is collapsing, with more than 80% of farmland damaged and most greenhouses destroyed. That's according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Its new report says nearly the entire population faces severe food insecurity, prompting urgent calls for humanitarian aid to prevent famine.
Gaza's ability to produce food is nearing total collapse, with less than 5% of its cropland still usable. That's according to a joint assessment by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the UN Satellite Center. The report says that by April this year, more than 80% of farmland has been damaged, and nearly 78% was inaccessible. Only 688 hectares out of more than 15,000 remain available for cultivation. Conditions are especially severe in Rafah and the northern areas, where nearly all farmland cannot be reached. Widespread destruction has also affected greenhouses, with more than 70% damaged. Rafah experienced the sharpest rise in destruction, increasing from just over 57% in December last year to just over 85% in April. In Gaza City, all greenhouses have been destroyed.
As farmers, my family, siblings, and I received a project grant from the FAO in 2021 or 2022 for approximately 8 dunams. That's 8,000 square meters worth of greenhouses. They were installed and we started working on them. But the war disrupted everything. 2,000 square meters of these greenhouses were bulldozed and the remaining 6 were damaged. The water source, which is the well, and the agricultural warehouse, including its contents and inputs, were destroyed.
Agriculture once made up 10% of Gaza's economy and supported more than 500,000 people. Earlier this year, the FAO estimated total losses in the agriculture sector at more than $2 billion, with recovery needs around $4.2 billion. The report says the collapse of the ceasefire has likely pushed those numbers even higher. Meanwhile, a new food security analysis shows the entire population of Gaza, around 2.1 million, is at critical risk of famine. Between the 1st of April and the 10th of May, 93% of people were facing crisis-level food insecurity or worse. Nearly 250,000 were already in Phase 5, classified as catastrophe, where starvation is occurring. That number could rise to 470,000 by September. According to projections, an estimated 470,000 people, or 22% of the population, will face catastrophic food insecurity from May to September 2025. The UN is urging immediate humanitarian access and an end to restrictions to avoid a full-scale famine.
To unpack the recent developments between Israel and Gaza, we're joined now by Tom Gross, a political analyst based in Tel Aviv. Welcome to the program, Tom.
Hello, good afternoon.
Now, recently Israel announced plans to use facial recognition technology to help distribute humanitarian aid in Gaza. How might this affect the speed and logistics of aid distribution, and how might it be implemented in practice?
Yes, well, in theory, if it works, I guess it will help greatly increase speed and logistics, because one of the problems has not been that there's been no food going into Gaza, it's been getting it to civilians. You know, Israel says, with some truth behind it, that Hamas has been stealing and hoarding the food. And the idea is it goes to civilians. And what Israel's trying to do is separate Hamas from the civilian population, so humanitarian aid goes directly to civilians. I should point out that Israeli face recognition technology is some of the leading tech of its kind in the world. A lot of the technology a lot of people use in smartphones and iPhones to open their phones is Israeli. When you go through airport check-in gates and you're using face recognition for your passports, that's Israeli tech. When you're parking your car at the back, there are cameras, how much distance you have, that's used globally, that's Israeli tech. So in theory, this will greatly speed up getting humanitarian aid to ordinary Gazans, yes.
Okay, and according to Israeli authorities, the primary goal of this strategy is to prevent Hamas from intercepting or accessing the aid, like what you just said before. But the UN and aid groups have pushed back against this new system and assert that Israel is trying to use food as a weapon and say a new system won't be effective. What's your analysis there?
Well, Israel and indeed some other people say that the UN is thoroughly corrupted in the humanitarian aid organizations for two reasons. Some of these agencies are literally infiltrated by Hamas and essentially cooperating with Hamas. You have Hamas members working for UNRWA and other UN agencies on the ground, and they're trying to control the aid in a way that prevents Hamas retaining power in Gaza. Another factor is there's also a lot of kind of corruption and kind of gravy train sort of jobs for the bureaucrats among the aid, and there's a lot of money involved with this aid. And yesterday, this new organization, which has been set up, registered in Delaware, the United States, this new organization has started for the first time distributing aid in Gaza instead of UNRWA, which Israel wants to, essentially strip of its power in Gaza. And so this is really all about the power for whether Hamas will stay in power of Gaza or not. In that sense, aid, I wouldn't call it a weapon, but it's a vital tool. It either helps Hamas, entrenches Hamas, stay in power, to have control of food in Gaza. If that control is taken out of their hands to this non-profit, they are weakened, and we'll see increased anti-Hamas demonstrations among Palestinians, which we've already been seeing an increase in recent days.
Okay, Tom, thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.
Now, US President Donald Trump says he's considering his approach to Russia amid growing frustration over the ongoing war in Ukraine and stalled peace negotiations. While more banking sanctions are not expected, other ways to pressure Russian President Vladimir Putin are being considered.
But he's sending rockets into cities.
US President Donald Trump says he's rethinking new sanctions on Russia as Moscow continues its attacks on Ukraine. While additional banking sanctions are reportedly off the table, other measures aimed at pressuring Russian President Vladimir Putin to make concessions are being explored. According to the Wall Street Journal, Trump might also decide not to impose new sanctions. The US president believes that additional sanctions on Russia would not curb its ability to wage war, but would hamper efforts to revive US-Russian economic ties. The White House says that President Trump remains committed to pursuing a negotiated peace deal, but is prepared to keep all options open. Trump's policy toward Russia has shifted between threats of sanctions and talks about increasing trade. He believed his personal connection with Putin could help bring about peace. However, Putin's recent refusal to agree to a 30-day ceasefire has made Trump rethink this. After a recent phone call, Trump said he doubts Putin really wants peace and called Putin's recent large attack on Ukraine absolutely crazy. Kyiv reported on Monday that Moscow had launched its biggest drone and missile attack yet, with more than 350 explosive drones and several cruise missiles overnight. Ukrainian forces say they fought back hard while civilians endured another sleepless night. Meanwhile, pressure is growing in the US Senate, where lawmakers introduced a bipartisan plan to impose new sanctions on Russia. The plan includes tariffs on countries that buy Russian oil, gas, and uranium. It aims to tighten economic pressure on Moscow. Western allies have also recently allowed more weapons to be sent to Ukraine. This means that Ukraine has the potential to strike deeper into Russian territory. The White House has not commented on this. According to reports, Trump blames Zelensky for making the conflict worse by pushing for more sanctions. Trump also worries that more sanctions could hurt the chances of restoring trade between the US and Russia after the war. During his first term, the US leader supplied weapons to Ukraine despite Russia's ongoing support for separatist attacks. On the campaign trail, Trump claimed he would have prevented Russia's invasion altogether and promised a swift resolution to the conflict. Now, as the war continues, Trump seems unsure whether to keep trying for peace or give up if there is no progress soon.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has confirmed that Western countries allied to Ukraine are no longer imposing range limits on arms delivered to Kyiv. Speaking at a digital conference in Berlin, Merz said there are no longer any restrictions on the range of weapons provided to Ukraine by Berlin, Paris, London and Washington. He added that this means that Ukraine can defend itself by striking military positions in Russia. Previously, AnewZ discussed recent developments in the Russia-Ukraine war and German Chancellor Merz's statement that Kyiv no longer faces any range limits on weapons delivered by its Western allies. He spoke with Victor Rudd of the Ukrainian-American Bar Association, who explained under what circumstances this could make a real difference.
But the real difference will be made only if the West, including the United States, understands what the war is all about. It's not a territorial dispute. It's not a border dispute. And if they straighten out their spine and have a purpose and a goal, the purpose and the goal has to be to enforce 70, 80 years of international agreements that Russia also agreed to in terms of the sovereignty of nations and the sanctity of territory. If we don't have that change in our mindset here in the West, then this will continue to be a bit of a circus, unfortunately, a tragic one that has been going on actually now, not just since February of 22, but since 2014. The United States and Trump being an advocate for Russia instead of being a mediator, rewarding Russia instead of imposing sanctions. And after this long and bloody history, my interpretation of Trump's reaction is essentially consistent with how he addressed other issues where he has failed including on domestic policy, and that is to always blame somebody else. He pretends he's surprised. Well, what is the reason for his surprise? I cannot believe that he did not have the same information that I have as a civilian about what has been happening in Ukraine and what Russia has been doing. And he acts as if this is something new. I view this at this point, until action supports words, I view this as an attempt to deflect attention away from his own personal failure and blame it on some big change that Putin has undergone. Putin has undergone through no changes whatsoever.
At least one person was killed and 2 others injured after Russian shelling in Ukraine's Sumy region, according to a statement by Ukraine's State Emergency Service on Monday. Firefighters say they tackled fires in several buildings. It was reported that the blazes were caused by Russian strikes using cluster munitions. The governor of Sumy region says Russian forces have captured 4 villages near the Ukrainian border and are attempting to create a buffer zone there. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan held talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. The discussions focused on resolving the Ukraine conflict and strengthening bilateral ties, according to the Turkish Foreign Ministry. Both sides reviewed recent peace efforts, including developments after Istanbul talks on the 16th of May. And to discuss the recent visit of Hakan Fidan to Moscow, we're joined by Kamer Kasım from Bolu Abant İzzet Baysal University. Welcome to the program, Doctor.
Thank you.
Now, President Putin and Minister Fidan discussed the situation in Ukraine and the ongoing peace talks. How might this contribute to the negotiation process, and what does it reveal about the current state of diplomacy?
Actually, Turkey's position toward Russia-Ukraine war is quite unique. On the one hand, Turkey doesn't recognize the territories that Russia occupied from Ukraine. It supports territorial integrity of Ukraine. Indeed, Turkey followed the same policy in 2014 when Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula of Ukraine. Turkey of the same position, but Turkey doesn't put any sanctions on Russia, so is a country that can talk with both countries, both Ukraine and Russia. So Turkey is in a perfect position to be a mediator and to be a side that both parties of the war, Russia and Ukraine, can talk with. So, Turkish Minister Hakan Fidan's visit is very important in that text, because we know that now war passed for 3 years, both sides exhausted, and many people died as a result. So, at least needs a kind of longer ceasefire, not even without the solution short term. Some attempts to do that made in the talk in Istanbul, but it seems that it didn't get any out. But some, at least in the world, hopeful that Turkey's effort at least will manage longer-term ceasefire. Otherwise, if we miss that opportunity now, it will continue maybe years in the near future to this war.
Okay, and they also touched on cooperation in the energy sector. What's the future of bilateral relations between the two countries in this area, and how might it impact Russia's influence in the region?
Yes, Turkish-Russian relations since the end of the Cold War a long way. On the one hand, two countries compete each other in regional issues in Caucasus, Turkestan region, Middle East. On the other hand, economic relations and energy cooperation continue. So, political problems pose the risk to deteriorate economic and relations and energy cooperation, both sides came up with the formula called compartmentalization. So they separated political relations, economic and energy cooperation, so that none of the compartment will affect the other side. Energy cooperation in this context really developed fast as the Blue Project and Turkish Stream projects in which Turkey gets natural gas from Russia, and also Akkuyu nuclear central projects relies with the cooperation of Turkey and Russia. So this energy cooperation will continue in the future with the two neighboring countries, and also Turkey doesn't want to see any kind of energy crisis to be seen in the world, not for other parts of the world. And also Turkey, for its energy security, diversify its supply source. And main country that Turkey in this context is Azerbaijan, as both countries' relations define one nation, two states. So main country that Turkey choose for their energy security is Azerbaijan. Also Turkey cooperates with Turkmenistan, and Turkey's main energy policy is that to get natural and oil from as many different sources as, and also especially in terms of natural gas, Turkey conducted to find its own sources as Turkey continued its drilling activities in Black Sea and Mediterranean Sea, and they also discovered some natural gas resources in its territorial forces,
okay.
The territorial water.
Okay, Dr. Kamer, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Now, 47 people have been injured, including 4 children, after a car drove into a crowd during the Liverpool Football Club's Premier League victory parade. The driver was arrested at the scene.
A tragic incident marred Liverpool Football Club's Premier League title victory parade on Monday evening when a car drove into a crowd of fans on Water Street in the heart of the city, injuring 47 people, including 4 children. The driver, a 53-year-old British man from Liverpool, was arrested at the scene. Emergency services responded swiftly, with 27 individuals hospitalised, 2 of whom are in serious condition, while another 20 were treated at the scene. 4 people, including a child, were rescued from beneath the vehicle. Eyewitnesses described the vehicle accelerating deliberately into the crowd, causing chaos and panic. Police say they're not treating the incident as terrorism.
What I can tell you is that we believe this to be an isolated incident, and we are not currently looking for anyone else in relation to it. The incident is not being treated as terrorism.
The local city council says the incident has marred the whole weekend.
It's cast a very dark shadow over what had been a joyous day for the city and the finale to a fabulous bank holiday weekend.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the incident as appalling and praised the swift response of emergency services. Liverpool FC, along with other football figures and political leaders, expressed solidarity with the victims and emphasised the city's resilience. The day was meant to be a celebration for Liverpool, marking their record-tying 20th top-flight title.
Khartoum International Airport, once a symbol of Sudan's turmoil, is now on the path to recovery. After being seized by rebel forces in April 2023, the airport remained under their control until the Sudanese armed forces reclaimed it in March this year. Our Anastasia Lavrina is reporting from the heart of this transformation.
Hello, today AnewZ is here at Khartoum International Airport in the Republic of Sudan. previously operational airport was shut down in April 2023 when the war started between the rebels and the official government forces. So this is the exact place from where the war started in April 2023 when the airport was attacked by missiles and the rebels. Within the next couple of years, the airport was controlled by the rebels, but it wasn't used. You can see around a lot of destroyed planes. You can imagine how people were planning to travel somewhere that day, but their plans were destroyed. According to the official statement of the government of Sudan, the Khartoum city now is completely liberated of the rebels and already started the reconstruction work here at the airport. It seems that within the next 1 or 2 months, this international airport will become functional again to make sure the former IDPs who are coming back to this city have a proper connection to the world. Anastasia Lavrina, especially for AnewZ from Khartoum International Airport, Republic of Sudan.
Armenia said it's ready to host the next ministerial meeting of the 3+3 platform. The Armenian Foreign Ministry noted that they will inform the public once the date and place of the meeting are decided. Earlier, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said at a joint press conference with Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan that the third 3+3 meeting is being planned. Lavrov proposed holding the next meetings in Baku and Yerevan. The platform is intended to help the South Caucasus countries work together and support regional cooperation. The platform also includes Russia, Turkey and Iran. Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said peace with Azerbaijan is near and pledged to amend the constitution if the country's top court blocks the peace agreement. Speaking alongside the Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico at the Yerevan Dialogue 2025 forum, Pashinyan said he's confident that there will be no war, adding that he's committed to continue efforts toward a lasting peace that could transform the region. Fico spoke on the need to finalize the normalization process for regional stability and invited Pashinyan to visit Slovakia. France considers the signing of a peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia important, according to the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot. During his visit to Yerevan, Barrot said that the South Caucasus region is an important communication hub for Europe. Following Barrot's meeting with his Armenian counterpart, 3 documents were signed, including provisions for annual political consultations between the foreign ministries, cooperation in combating disinformation, and training of diplomats. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has expressed his country's support for Iran's right to a peaceful and civilian nuclear program. The statement came during his official visit to Tehran on Monday, where he met with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. The two leaders agreed to strengthen ties in areas they both care about, such as improving trade and attracting investment, and say they'll work together for regional peace and security. At a joint press conference, Sharif said the talks were productive and useful and that they covered all important topics. Tehran is the second stop on Sharif's 4-country trip. He started in Istanbul and will also visit Azerbaijan and Tajikistan, aiming to improve relations and to discuss regional and global issues. Kazakhstan and China have agreed to enhance the capacity and speed up logistics at their shared border. Delegations from both countries visited border points and announced measures to simplify border crossings. Our Fariza Kalimurzina has more.
Border cooperation between Kazakhstan and China is reaching a new level. In the first 4 months of this year, over 238,000 vehicles passed through checkpoints, a 41% increase compared to the same period in 2024. The delegations visited the Nurzholo and Korgo sites, where they assessed infrastructure and discussed ways to improve it. Following the visit, it was decided to extend round-the-clock operation of the crossings until the end of June next year. Currently, up to 650 vehicles pass through Nurzholo daily, and by September this number is expected to double. One key step is the mutual recognition of X-ray images from inspection complexes. This will speed up cargo screening and reduce waiting times at the border. Another priority is the reconstruction of the border bridge between Nurzhol and Korgos. The two countries also agreed to intensify customs cooperation and hold regular working meetings. These agreements are expected to strengthen the region's transit potential, speed up delivery of goods, and ensure stable trade within international transport corridors. Today, Central Asia is becoming an important market for Chinese cars and a hub for their assembly. Demand for affordable vehicles is growing, and governments are keen to attract investments from Chinese companies. New Chinese cars already account for 39% of the Kazakh market. Fariza Kalimurzina, AnewZ, in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Uzbekistan announced it aims to grow IT service exports to $1 billion by 2025 and $5 billion by 2030. The goal was presented at the M360 Eurasia Forum, hosted for the first time in Tashkent. The event gathered international experts to discuss internet accessibility, sustainable digital growth, and stronger ties between governments and tech sectors. Now for some uplifting news. Father of a 3-year-old that beat leukemia in Turkey took to social media and called on his fellow townspeople to celebrate with the family, as he said they don't have many friends. Little did he know thousands would turn up.
This isn't a concert, it's not a protest, and no, there's no big sale happening. These thousands of people in Istanbul are here to celebrate one small but very brave superhero. Meet Ali Asaf Demir. He was diagnosed with leukemia at just 8 months old. But after a bone marrow transplant and 2 years of tough treatment, he's officially a survivor. Ali's dad Samet didn't have a huge circle of friends to celebrate with. So instead, he asked the internet. The call touched hearts far beyond the family's doorstep. The local municipality in Sancaktepe got involved, and suddenly, it wasn't just a balloon release, it was a full-blown celebration of life. Thousands gathered, balloons were released, the sky was filled with colour, and for the Demir family, hope.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.